This is Jake Ciely, and I'm the blown ACL that ruins your football season.
How is that for an intro and game on, you ducks? Yes, this is a very special podcast. Possibly the most excited I've ever been for an interview. No, it's not Patrick Mahomes or Saquon Barkley or anybody like that. This is one of the most dangerous podcasts, hint, hint, that I have ever done. And I hope you enjoy it half as much as I do, because that means you're going to get a 10 out of 10, because I'm giving this one a 20 out of 10. I'll just be happy if he makes it through the entire podcast without thinking I'm a weirdo for all of the stuff behind me commemorating the great work he's done. I already told him before we came on the podcast that I am geeking out more than probably talking to Patrick Mahomes, because I'm talking to Jim Cummings. If you don't know who Jim Cummings is, he's also been featured at the San Diego Comic-Con. He's got the New York Comic-Con coming up. 30 years of Disney villains panel. He's won the best voicing acting in television for, I'll tell you who, by the way, in a second here. He's got his podcast, Tuned In with Jim Cummings. We're going to cover all that stuff. But the voices where you might know Jim from, let's start the ones that people might not even know. Cat Dog, King of the Hill, Don Carnage from the original Tailspin, great show. Fat Cat from Rescue Rangers, great show. Video games, did voices on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And let's talk about the bigger ones. Tigger, Pete from Goof Troop, which was one of the awards he won. Tasmanian Devil, Bonkers, Honda, if you watch Star Wars, which was one of the best characters. And of course, Winnie the Pooh. And I'm saving my best for last. I mean, everybody knows him for Winnie the Pooh, but the voice of the original Darkwing Duck, which he also won an award for. Jim, thank you for being on this show. And thank you for your 40 years and 1,500 voices to your career.
Yeah, amazing. I don't know who sat down and counted that out, but God love him. Thank you.
So,
well, it's
funny
great to
enough,
be here.
Yeah, thank you. So funny enough, you actually met Sterling Holloway, the original voice of Winnie the Pooh. I saw that story on your, by the way, the Tune In podcast. I also watched the great one with Zachary Levi. I love that show, Chuck. I love Zachary.
Good. Yeah, he's a good guy.
But do you want to tell everybody like how you randomly met him? And by the way, that's his real voice that people might not know, that like that's how he sounds.
Yeah, that was just him talking. We're down there, and many moons ago, before I was in the business, so it's quite a long time ago, and just having lunch down in Laguna Niguel, California, and the waitress walks over and she goes up to a table that I could not see who was sitting there, and she said, "So, have you decided what you're going to have for lunch today?" And you hear this little voice, "I believe I shall have the chowder." And I was thinking, Winnie the Pooh. So I got up and I pretended I was getting some salt and pepper off another table. And I looked, and there he was. God bless him. Sterling Holloway is sitting there, and he had all this white hair shooting out of, like, up in a big, I don't know, some kind of haystack looking thing. And he looked just as peaceful and sweet as it could be. And to this day, I regret that I didn't go up and say hello to him. Although I don't know what I would have said, but I'd have said something. Something like, "I'm a big fan," and, "Hey, have you got any spare honey?" I would have thought of something, and little did I know that in probably within a decade, I would be invited to reprise his character. And but it made for it made for a great little story there, though. Great little interlude.
It does. And then that's what one of the first things I wanted to ask you about. Like, I've always been curious about the voice acting. I have a friend of mine, Olin Rogers. He did a show, Final Space, and I told him if he ever brings it back, I want to do a voice, because this is always like DuckTales and Darkwing Duck were always my biggest. For anybody that listens to me knows how much I can sing the voices or the songs a cappella. And I always wanted to do that. It was like I always wanted to be like, I just want to do a voice. So when I'm wondering that, like, how do you come up with the voices? Do you sit there and go like, I'm going to test out 20 voices and I like this one? Or do you tweak them? Like, how do you go through figuring out, like, do you look at the character that they've drawn and say, like, maybe he sounds like this? How does it all work for somebody like you?
Well, sometimes it's good to go against type. Like, if a guy's 500 pounds, it might be fun if he had a little teeny tiny voice, and that can work. And the opposite is true too. If you have a guy who's the size of an ant and he sounds like Goliath, that's okay too. And so it just depends. And you mix and match, and like with Darkwing, for example, he was incredibly conceited. He thought very highly of himself, and so that informs the voice too. And it kind of gives you yeah, that's right. What's your matter with your problem, pal? And it all comes together in that way. And different little things, and then kind of mix and match accents. Like Hondo Ohnaka is one of my favorite guys, and I
I
like to say
love it.
that he's a cross between Charles Bronson and Yul Brynner, two old character actors,
Yeah.
and that's where he came from.
Here's a random one. So can every voice actor do Christopher Walken?
I think it's one of the things that you have to do, and I don't even know why, but you do. And everybody does Christopher Walken, and
I wish I
he's so.
could. So I was gonna say like that's one like again I've always wanted to do it. I can't do Christopher Walken. So that is actually my question. There's ever been a voice that you can't do and you've wanted to? You're like, man, I can't pull that one off.
Geez, yeah, Tinkerbell. No, I'm just kidding. No, no, not really. Because if you do, I've always said that if you do a bad impression of somebody famous that everybody knows, nobody knows who it is. Well, you have a new character.
That's a really good point. So how do you prevent from getting like worn out and like because you're making your voice sound something different. So like if I do 3 podcasts in a day, by the end of the third one, I'm like, man, my voice is kind of starting to go. Like how do you because this is your job. Like how do you prevent that?
Well, you can gargle salt water. And honestly, when I go to a football game or a boxing match, something like that, I never yell. I never, yeah, yeah. You don't want to do that. In fact, when I did Tasmania, we did 65, almost 100 episodes. And my request was, okay, let's do this, but it's got to be on Friday afternoon, because that way, you see what I mean? I've got the weekend, and I can recover, so to speak. So it's an instrument. Think of your voice as an instrument, and that kind of informs the approach. You want to take care of yourself.
Oh yeah, so I was Halloween for my podcast when I do video. I did the Batman voice for an entire podcast one time. I needed like 24. Oh, by the way, coincidental enough, I'm just going to show you this. This is not
Yeah.
because you were on the show. I had already bought this. You want to see what I am for Halloween this year?
Oh, look at that. That's
It's
a
the
good
hat's
one.
over here. I had oh, it's the full suit. I'll have to send you a picture after when I'm
Oh,
fully
please
dressed in this
do.
entire thing because this will be
Please
crazy. It's
do.
for everybody out there. I just held up. It's a very like I think you can figure it out. You can put the pieces together of what I'm going to be for Halloween
Yes.
this year.
All I can tell you is it was a mask of a very good-looking duck.
Actually, you know what? You're doing the voice. Can I get you to say something for the podcast? I'm going to give you one
I
because you
bet.
always had the lines from Darkwing. Can you say, "This is Jake Ciely, and I'm the blown ACL that ruined your fantasy football season"?
Okay, whoa, give me that again. This is
You have to write this down. So this is Jake Ciely, so me, and I'm the blown ACL that ruins your fantasy football season.
And I'm the blown ACL that ruins your football. This is Jake Ciely, and I'm the blown ACL that ruins your football season.
That's perfect. That's amazing. Did you have a favorite one of his lines? Like I always love the "I'm the grade curve that gives you an F." That was
Oh
always a
yeah,
good one.
yeah. Oh, that is a good one. Well, I always used to make up the one in the middle, and there were a great many of them. But I could tell you one that that is kind of self-deprecating, but it was, I am the floaty that will not flush in the toilet bowl of crime. And they go, no, we're not going to say that one. No, we're not going to do that one.
I was gonna say I don't remember that one's great. They should have kept
Yeah,
that one.
yeah. But but there was a joke. We were doing like 7 or 8 shows in long, long time ago, and it said because every single show had "I am the terror that flaps in the night, I am
Right,
the winged skirt of the pack," and the middle line was the one that changed every time,
right.
because the first and the last line had to remain, and it said "I am the terror that flaps in the night." It doesn't matter what I write here, because Jim's not going to say it anyway. I am Darkwing Duck.
That's terrific. I love it. I actually watched the DuckTales reboot. And then
Mhm.
for people that might not know, you were in it, but then
Yeah,
also there was Chris. I'm not going to even try to say his last name, Dominopolis.
yes, that's him.
Actually, yeah, that's
Yeah,
him. Who,
Monopolis. Yeah.
yeah, did the new Drake Mallard. And so you were in it. But so the name of Darkwing, the original, was Jim Starling. Was that a nod to you being Jim?
I don't know. I think it was, but Starling, Cummings, I don't know. But that was a very weird little interlude there. The guys who were doing DuckTales at the time were big Darkwing fans, and it
Deservedly
was
so.
yeah, and that it just kind of they said, well, let's do something. We gotta, give Darkwing a cameo. So that's what happened.
So no reboot. They're not going to do the reboot like
Well,
Ducktales.
there is a rumor going around that we're going to be starting, and we're not waiting on me. I'm ready.
If you're, I mean, I'll come out there.
There you go. That's good.
No, but
Come on
I will be
out.
the first in line to watch that. Well, speaking of first in line, so the New York Comic
Yeah.
Con, like I said, is
Yes,
coming
indeed.
up. What are you most excited for? Like, what do you look forward to? Like interacting with the fans, like myself, as I told you, I'm geeking out. Hopefully, I'm not putting you too uncomfortable. But like, what are you most
No.
looking forward to being up there at the New York Comic Con?
Well, it's always a blessing, and I don't take it for granted. That's for sure. And I try to be up for every single person that comes. A little tired at the end of the day, because they get to meet somebody that they probably never thought they would meet, and it's great because somebody can come up to you and they're 45 years old and they hear Winnie the Pooh say, "Would you please pass the honey?" Or Tigger say, "Let's go Bunsen," and all of a sudden they're 5 years old, and that's the part that gets me. And there are tears of joy, there's laughter, and you can see their faces light up, and it's great because at this point, I've got well, grandpa's 60, his daughter is 35, and her son is 7, and they're all fans. So I've got three generations right there, and they're all having a good time, and they all bond under that one love of animation or cartoons or different characters. Pooh and Tigger, very much so. Darkwing, very much so.
Yeah.
And now Hondo Ohnaka's out there, and he's got his own fan base. It's very interesting. I've got I've been blessed with a wide variety of characters, and each one has their own fan base, if you will. And it's
Yeah.
and it's a ball. It's great. It's great to just see the faces, and they because they a lot of times I find that people think they must be doing something in the studio to make me sound this way or that way, and no, it's just a microphone.
And it's so impressive. And I'm glad you brought up the Honda too, because I was going to talk about that. Is that I saw recently, like the collectible world is kind of like bouncing back and blowing up
Oh my
again. Like we
gosh.
went through that in the 90s and early 2000s, and now it's really doing it again. And I saw that you recently signed the Pooh cards for the new Topps Disney set,
Yeah.
and that they're going for some money. Like I saw one of them went for 1,500, and some of the Hondo cards are going in the hundreds. Like, do you collect it all? And what do you make of that? Like, just this wave coming back of all these collectibles.
Oh yeah. I get a kick out of it. It's kind of amazing. Whenever one comes out, I tend to get two or three of them. Just
Nice.
cause, and I'll hold on to them. And then when I'm gone, my kids, my wife, they can all sell them for too much money and have a little annuity there. Hey, well, he's gone, but at least he left a couple bucks behind. But I'm just honored, really.
It's such amazing things. Like two more quick things. I'll get you out of here because I
Sure,
know you
sure,
got a lot going on and everything. But
no problem.
going back to Darkwing real quick, because you brought that up and you made me think of something. So I have a nephew and a niece. My sister had a big gap in between kids. Nephew 15, niece is 6. But I've gotten them into DuckTales and Darkwing. And do you have a favorite episode? Because the niece's favorite episode is actually your Negaduck episode, where you actually do
Oh,
both voices.
yeah, yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Negaduck, he was in there a lot.
Yeah,
What was it, the Fearsome Five or something like that?
yeah.
He
Towards the
was,
yeah.
yeah, toward the end. Um, it's hard to say if I had I think probably the sweetest ones is when he was adopting Goslin. And
I'm trying to
yeah.
find a Gosling outfit for her to be for Halloween so she can walk around
Oh,
with me.
right.
Do you? Oh,
Yeah.
I just thought of that. Do you guys record at the same time, like when you're doing it, or is it like you do your scenes and then they come in and do theirs, or is it a mix?
Well, yeah, I prefer doing it all together because that way you feel like you're in a play. It's more organic because acting is a lot also reacting, and if
Yeah,
there's nobody there, you can't react to anything. But so I do that. But I think COVID really messed up things for a good while there, and so everybody flew solo, so to speak. They were the only person in the studio, and you and the engineer, and that was it. And
yeah.
so we're slowly crawling back, and I prefer it. So if you could put in a good word, that would be good.
Oh, I would love to. Actually, and that's the last about the voice acting. Last question I had for you to get you out of here is that,
Sure.
and I was going to talk about your podcast as we get out of here. But
Yes.
how do, like, if somebody wanted to get into this, that anybody's listening to this, as listening to as many cartoons and video games like you do, and I'm not obviously I'm not going to name any names, and I can't even think of any names, but like to come off of, like, sometimes people sound a little flat or like not energetic. Like, do
Mhm.
you go in? Do you take it up to 110% when you're doing the voices, or how do you give somebody a suggestion if they're trying to do this to, like, not sound kind of flat, so to speak? I know you know what I'm trying to say there. It's kind of hard
Yeah.
to word it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's I have an expression or a mindset that each session is like the Super Bowl, or each session is a title fight, and it's because, very simply, if it's the only show that somebody sees and then you're off your game, well, they're not going to tune back in. It's so you have to give 100% every single time, because, and the fact is that these things live forever. I use the example of when I first did Winnie the Pooh. Uh, I had a cold. I had just a plain old head cold, and it sounded like Pooh had excuse me, had a head cold, and I realized, okay, don't, it's not the end of the world. We could wait 3 or 4 days for it to go over, and so the lesson is you have to bring your A game to every single session, because they last forever. I mean, there are
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny cartoons that you can watch on Nickelodeon or this or that, and they were made during World War II. So I mean, just a long, long time, and they last forever. They're evergreen. Because I always joke that a Pooh generation is 3 years, because every 3 years there's a whole new generation of Winnie the Pooh fans.
Coming through. Yeah. All right. So again, thank you so much for this. Before you get out of here, I want to remind everybody. So Tuned In Podcast, which is a great watch or listen.
Thank you.
Like I said, definitely check out the Zachary Levi one. And for everybody out there, you can also find Jim on Cameo too, if you want to get him to do something
This
like
is
I did,
true.
make it do a voice. Anything else that you want to push out there? I know you're also out there pushing for the Oscars to have the Voice Awards, which would be terrific and deservedly so
Yes.
for all the work you do. Anything else before you get out of here besides catching you at New York Comic Con that people should know about?
No, I think you did a great job there. But how much do I owe you?
Nothing. You gave me a free clip of Darkwing reading something on my show, so that's more than
Okay.
enough.
Well,
Uh,
that sounds good to me.
Make sure if you're in the area, you go check them at New York Comic Con. Please listen to the podcast, and if you haven't watched Darkwing or Winnie the Pooh, rectify that immediately. I want to thank Jim Cummings
That's
so
right.
much for coming on here.
Oh, my pleasure, Jake. Thank you very, very much.
Once again, Jim Cummings, the voice of everything, and especially Darkwing Duck, in what should be the Hall of Fame of voice actors. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I will catch you guys next time when we're back to fantasy football with Ian Harditz, who has to follow that up. I'm sorry, Ian, but you got the short end of the stick on that one, because there is no following up that guest.